It's the 21st of June 2025. This is part 2 of the analysis. For part 1, see the links in the description. The question I want to answer with this analysis is: do plants show changed electrical signaling behavior during geomagnetic storms? Continuing from part 1, I test the 3 environmental factors: temperature, humidity, and pressure, to see if they behave differently during geomagnetic disturbances. And I find that pressure shows no effect as expected. However, I find that temperature and humidity show behavior that is significantly different during geomagnetic storms. Because of these unexpected results, I consider what alternative statistical tests I can apply instead of the Kolmogorov-Smirnov test that I have been using. These should also be non-parametric tests, since all my distributions are non-normal. Some research suggests that the Mann-Whitney-Wilcoxon test is appropriate. This test also shows that all 3 environmental factors, temperature, humidity, and pressure, are significantly different during geomagnetic disturbances. So this does not resolve the controversy. There is no report in the scientific literature of any direct effect of geomagnetic disturbances on temperature, humidity, and pressure at ground level. Therefore, I attribute these effects to geomagnetically induced currents in the environmental sensor that I'm using. The controversy could be resolved by looking at high-frequency weather data recorded with a different device. If that data then showed no effect for temperature, humidity, and pressure, this would be in line with expectation. So I'm trying to acquire this environmental data from an alternative source. Meanwhile, let's go back to our plant voltages. In part 1 of the analysis, we saw that the plant voltage data showed significantly different behavior during geomagnetic storms, while the dead wood voltage data showed no such difference. This finding is strong support for the plants and geomagnetism hypothesis. But what happens if we use a different statistical test? Will we get the same result? I applied the Mann-Whitney-Wilcoxon test to plant and control, and I find the same significant effect in plant data, while no significant effect is found in the control data from the dead piece of wood. So this confirms the findings of the Kolmogorov-Smirnov test. So let's summarize. We have shown that voltage variations measured on the stem of a live conifer tree change significantly during geomagnetic storms. And we have shown that this type of change is not detectable in the voltage variations measured on a dead piece of wood, the control system. This finding is consistent with the scientific literature. According to literature, there are 2 known mechanisms that are likely responsible for what my experiment is showing. Both mechanisms will be acting in parallel. The first mechanism involves geomagnetically induced electrical currents. Recent studies have reported that these currents appear in terrestrial power lines during geomagnetic storms. This effect is stronger at high latitudes on the northern hemisphere, where I'm located. In addition, a study by Fraser Smith, published in 1978 in Nature, describes synchronicity between small geomagnetic fluctuations and voltages measured on the stem of a tall tree. So taken together, this tells us that a tree can act as an electrically conducting antenna in a changing magnetic field, and this, according to basic physics, induces electrical currents in the plant body, the tree. But there's more. The second mechanism involved is the reported direct action of artificially generated magnetic fields on plant physiology. Physiological effects such as altered growth patterns and increased germination rates in seeds have been shown for two cases. First, when the geomagnetic field is screened out and reduced to nearly zero. And second, when it is replaced by a stronger artificially generated magnetic field. These direct physiological effects are linked to the action of cryptochromes on plant cells. Plant sensitivity to fluctuations of the geomagnetic field is therefore likely, and my experiment confirms this. If we now combine what the scientific literature tells us with my own findings in this experiment, the result is exciting. It means that trees are very likely capable of directly sensing the disturbances in the geomagnetic field. Sensing here means that whenever a geomagnetic disturbance happens, for example as a result of a solar eruption, trees will show a physiological and an electrical reaction that is measurable through electrodes connected to the tree stem. I think this is a very interesting area for much more research. So I conclude that my experimental data supports the initial hypothesis and that I definitely need to continue doing experiments here.